Thank you once again for tuning into Car and Bike, and we're back with yet another podcast which is talking about a very interesting segment of motorcycles, which is the 400cc segment of motorcycles, Preetham, and a lot of launches over the past 1 year in this particular space.
That's right. That's the hottest new segment, and it's growing quite fast. And what the 250cc segment used to be 10 years ago, growing rapidly. Now the 400cc segment is right there. Everybody wants a piece of action in that segment. So we've seen so many launches. So the newest, and of course, a very attractively priced motorcycle is the one that you had ridden. Unfortunately, I didn't get the chance to ride that. It's a new Bajaj Pulsar NS400Z.
Z.
So, Shams, you've spent considerable amount of time with it. So, what was the bike like?
Well, a lot of expectations we had from the motorcycle. It was the Pulsar flagship. People were waiting for it. And it was a mixed bag, It came with a price that would really pull you towards the Bajaj showroom, The cheapest, cheapest is the wrong word, the most affordable of the lot, if we're talking about all the motorcycles in the segment, starts at 1.85 lakh rupees. So that is definitely a pull. But what could have been different in the Pulsar was the way it looks. It should not remind you of other Pulsars in the family, which I think it did. And of course, it comes with an engine that's been running for a very long time. So, right. Even technologically, it could have been a more advanced motorcycle than what it is. But having said that, still some things work for me. The ergonomics are very nice. The right position you get on the Pulsar is nice. So somebody of my height, I was quite comfortable sitting on the motorcycle, and you could spend long hours on that bike without getting tired. So that worked for me. And if you look at the overall package, despite the shortcomings, I think it will still be able to make its mark in this segment for those factors.
Yeah, I agree with Shams to that extent that, the NS, it derives the same similar, very familiar NS lineage and in terms of design. That it's got a typical NS design, but whatever said and done, the NS has been around for a long time now.
Yeah, and design is a big pull, right? This segment where you can see that many of the manufacturers, many of the motorcycles now they're there. And you can see that the effort is there to give you good looking motorcycles.
Correct.
And unfortunately, the Pulsar is not number one on that list. It is number one on the price list, but not number one on the design list.
Yeah, on a design front, in fact, I would have preferred something more retro, maybe. Not retro in the sense like a modern classic, but maybe Bajaj could have derived some inspiration from the original, the classic Pulsar 180 of 1999-2000 when it was launched. Similar round headlight, maybe with a LED treatment to it. Something like the Italians, like the MV Agustas or the Ducati Monsters have done.
Absolutely, totally.
That would have made the Pulsar NS400.
Let's do one thing. Let's list out the motorcycles we're talking today.
Yeah.
And then let's see which design we like the most.
All right.
So we're talking about the Pulsar, of course.
Yeah.
We have two bikes from the Hero Harley family, which is the Maverick and the X440. We have two bikes from the Triumph
Bajaj partnership again.
Triumph Bajaj partnership, which is of course the Speed 400 and the 400X. And then you also have two other motorcycles which are at the premium end of the segment, which is the 390 Duke from KTM. And of course the Himalayan 450. So your take on design 1, 2, 3, which one lies where?
Purely from a design perspective, my pick will be the Triumph Speed 400.
All right.
Fit and finish. Even the Scrambler 400X for that matter. Maybe the Scrambler 400X because it looks like a more substantial motorcycle than the Speed 400.
Right.
It looks a bigger, although the same platform, same engine, same chassis, everything is the same except for a bigger front wheel. But the Scrambler 400, the Triumphs, the fit and finish, the build quality, you look at it, those are desirable motorcycles. You look at them, you want to take it for a spin, take the key and, those are the bikes that people really desire for.
Right.
That's the kind of pull that, in my book, that does
I
Triumph.
think definitely it's been worth the wait for both of these motorcycles, both the Triumph motorcycles. Whichever one you pick, you will not be so disappointed for sure.
Absolutely.
Fit and finish, definitely, as you mentioned. And even the design, it's very, especially the X, it's something that really appeals to you.
Yeah.
If you've been someone who's been riding for a very long time, and if you used to a world where you only had one motorcycle to choose in this segment, and now suddenly have so many options to choose, then you can see how it has progressed and how designs have evolved and how this one really attracts you towards it. So that is very nice. But what's your take on these two bikes from Hero? The Maverick and the X440 in terms of design?
They are very good bikes in terms of design specifically. I am more inclined towards the X440, if you will.
Okay.
The Maverick I've spent a considerable amount of time with. It's a very impressive motorcycle nevertheless. But from a design point of view, I find it a bit of a hit and miss for me. I mean, it looks a mismatch of everything. The front part is still okay. It looks like a retro power cruiser kind of a mixed match. The tail section, the Hero bikes, the rear mudguard and the tail light section of most Hero bikes, I'm not a fan of particularly. I think Hero could maybe give more attention to the tail section of the bikes. But well-built bikes. But from a design perspective, my pick would be the X440 over the Maverick.
I
440.
think I agree with you. It feels and looks like a more robust motorcycle.
Yeah.
Even though seat height is slightly lesser than the Maverick, which was a bit of surprise for me. But it does remind you of the bigger bikes from the brand, which for me is one of the key takeaways. When you're looking to buy a Harley, you're paying a premium when compared to the Maverick. So you get that feel when you look at the motorcycle.
And plus the instrument console looks more premium, feels more premium, better visibility, TFT screen, full color and all that.
Right.
And Maverick's got a smaller display, somewhat takes away the the quality, and it gets used to it. It's not a deal breaker, but takes some time to get used to the display of the Maverick 440.
And that brings us to the Himalayan 450, because this was the design that was talked about a lot. It really got the opinion divided. Somebody liked it, somebody didn't really like it.
Yeah.
How was it for you?
Well, I didn't like it initially when I saw the pictures, but the more time I've spent with it, the Himalayan 450 has certainly grown on me. I think it's a pretty good looking motorcycle, pretty substantial looking motorcycle. Although it's a 450cc class motorcycle, it looks like a substantially bigger motorcycle, more like a 650 or a 800cc. I have parked it next to my Tiger, it doesn't look very small.
Smaller in comparison, yeah.
So road presence, Himalayan 450 in terms of looks primarily, it certainly has that in dollops.
But can you spend upwards of 3 lakh rupees on the Himalayan 450 and still use it for your daily commutes? Is the bike suited for that purpose?
Yes, absolutely. The Himalayan 450 is the closest in my book in terms of being a perfect all-rounder, so to say, because you can do everything with it that you can think of in terms of a motorcycle. You can do a daily commute on it. You can go long distance riding on it. You can do adventure riding on it, soft-roading. Or if you want to go really hardcore off-roading, also the Himalayan 450 will not disappoint, because it's got the capability to go the distance where the road ends. And like how the chassis and the suspension and the engine combination is a great package the Himalayan 450 offers at that price point.
And then, of course, the most expensive of the lot, which is the Duke 390, and the bike that's been around for a very long time. But in its latest avatar, of course, a lot of changes, a lot of improvements in what it was earlier, right? Yeah. So now when you compare the Duke to other offerings in the segment, is it still a class apart, or others are catching up, or they're saying, okay, we're also there?
If you want bang for your buck, I don't think there's anything in that whole list that we've discussed about which comes close to the Duke. If you want a performance-oriented motorcycle, the KTM 390 Duke is a class apart.
So best performing motorcycle in the sense?
It's a naked sport bike. So it's got the handling, it's got the dynamics, it's got the performance. So if for anyone who's looking for a performance-oriented motorcycle purely, not talking about going off-roading or adventure touring or adventure riding, a 390 Duke, the bang for the buck that you get, even at that price point, although it's the most expensive on this list that we're discussing about, I think it's still very good value for money, but it's still slightly expensive, like you said.
Yeah. But in terms of performance purely, you look at other motorcycles in the segment, and where is each of them placed according to you? If you say Duke is the best, but which one comes next?
See, I'll talk about the performance in a slightly more elaborate fashion. When you talk about the Duke's performance, where do you use that performance? I mean, it's got so much performance that it's not safe or it's not advisable to use the Duke's performance out on the street. So, but if you want to go out on a racetrack, occasionally you want to learn how to ride in a racetrack, it's a Duke which is the best amongst all these. But for street uses, a Speed 400 or be it a X440 or be it a Maverick, all of these will offer you very good dynamics and ride quality, of course.
So it's not just numbers. It's not like which is the most powerful bike. So this is.
It is not.
It's not that, right?
It is not. For street use, if you're primarily going to be riding on the street, do you need that kind of performance? Where will you use that kind of performance? Is it safe for you? Is it safe for other road users? I don't think so. But if you do want to learn how to ride properly on a racetrack, you want to get some racetrack exposure. On that note, if you have a Duke, please do sign up for a track day, at least one track day. Go and learn how to ride, because that's when you'll understand the potential of the motorcycle and your own riding potential also. And riding on a racetrack doesn't mean racing motorcycles, right?
And how do you choose the right motorcycle? Most of your usage will be for commutes, right? You will, of course, go for your weekend rides or maybe some bit of mild off-roading. But when you have to choose between, say, a 400, Speed 400 or an X, or you have to choose between an X440 and a Maverick, How do you choose your motorcycle?
It's very simple between the Speed 400 and the Scrambler 400X. If you're going to be going trail riding, mile off-road trails, unless you're jumping 10 feet in the air, which very few people will do, the Scrambler 400X can take you a lot of places. The Speed 400 has got limitations because of the suspension travel, because of the way the motorcycle is. It's a roadster after all. It's built for the street.
Right.
But for everything, everything else, Speed 400 is a nimble, compact bike, and I was quite floored actually when I rode the bike the first ride. And between the two, if it depends on uses, what kind of use you will be doing. If you're primarily going to be sticking to tarmac, Speed 400, no doubt is a fantastic package. Somebody who's got a height, taller guy like you and who wants to do mile off-road trails, once in a while maybe you'd want to go to a lake where you have to travel through a trail of a few kilometers, then the Scrambler 400X is a better bet. Between the X440 and the Maverick 440, I would say it depends on personal choice really, on what kind of design that you prefer. Both bikes are more or less the same. Of course, the Maverick is slightly more affordable. But design again looks are subjective. Some people will like the Mavericks look, some people will like the Harley's looks. So it depends on what kind of bike between the Hero and the Harley.
Yeah, I mean that 2 Nm difference in torque, how much of an impact does it make?
It makes a slight difference because the Harley's to me feels a little more energetic, not substantially more, little more energetic. But of course, there's a little bit of weight difference also between the two bikes. So it's negated that way. And I think the X440 also has a lower seat height, right?
Lower seat height, yeah. I mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. So 2 Newton meters, it really doesn't make any difference, practically speaking, unless you ride them both back to back and test them and feel. But to me, the X440 is the one which feels slightly more enjoyable than the...
Yeah, of whatever, I haven't ridden all these motorcycles, but you mentioned the 400X and that seat height is really critical for me. You mentioned my height and you get a seat height of 835 millimeters on the 400X. And to me, it makes a huge difference when compared to a bike which is say around 800 millimeters of seat height. Or
Correct.
Speed 400 is much lesser than the X, right? So it makes, to me as a rider, I feel more comfortable, just gives me the confidence of riding it for a longer time. Without getting tired. So that really is crucial for me. And I felt that when I rode the Himalayan as well. A big bike, sort of intimidates you initially when you start riding it.
Right.
But then you sit on it and you start riding it and you say, oh, this is suiting my riding style a lot.
Right.
So that is another critical factor. So yes, price is there, figures are there, numbers are there, ergonomics are there. But seat height also for me or a taller rider is as critical as...
Even for a slightly shorter rider also, a Scrambler 400X may be too daunting, maybe he'll have to tiptoe or maybe just... And that's part of the confidence about riding a motorcycle, right? Somebody who's not really exposed to motorcycle, somebody who's not an expert level rider would feel that, moment you put both your feet flat on both sides, then you feel a different kind of confidence, unlike when you're tiptoeing on both sides. So even for a shorter rider, lower seat height makes it more easier for the rider. It's just human nature, right? You feel like, oh, I can handle this bike better.
Okay, before we come to a sort of verdict on, what are our personal favorites in the segment. Is there anything we can look forward to in the segment? Something that's coming up over the next few months that, somebody who's sitting on the verge of buying a motorcycle in the 400 to 450cc space, what else can that rider look forward to?
Well, there are quite a few motorcycles coming over the next year, few months. The one that I can think of is based on the same Sherpa 450 platform as the Himalayan 450.
Right.
That's going to be a roadster variant on the same platform, same engine, same chassis. It's a platform sharing model that's the new 450 from Royal Enfield that's going to be launched very soon. And that's something that's one should look forward to for sure. On that platform, there's also one more bike in the making, and that 440 platform, the kind of torque that it has, the kind of refinement that it has is, I think it's near perfect for a Scrambler, and the Scrambler is in the making, we know for a fact.
Right.
That's going to come in the future. We don't know exactly when, maybe end of this year or early next year, but a Scrambler in the 440 platform will come. That's one bike I think will be a very entertaining bike for sure.
So a lot of choices for you now and in future even more. But in conclusion, Preetham, I really want to ask you, all the bikes we discussed today, do we have when you have the clarity in your mind that this is the kind of motorcycle I want, will you still be confused between these motorcycles, or you'll okay, this is the one for me?
I will still be confused because I can only I can only shortlist to 2 or 3
Okay.
amongst all these bikes.
Right.
I know the bikes that I don't want for my kind of riding. Of course, it's subjective. Depends on what kind of uses, what kind of riding, what kind of budget, and what kind of where will you be riding it? Will you be riding it to office? Will you be riding it to college? Will you be riding long distance? Will you be riding it occasionally on weekends? Several factors you should consider while buying a motorcycle. As far as I know, spoiled for choice. Even I can't pinpoint one motorcycle. It's comes down to 2 or 3 motorcycles in that list.
And importantly in this segment, based on our conversations within ourselves, with other riders, even manufacturers, even they say that price is not the most critical factor, especially when it comes to these motorcycles.
This is the new segment of leisure motorcycle or pleasure motorcycle or what you call it. People ride for leisure or for fun. Comparatively affordable segment than
it's a bit like the premium hatches doing better than entry level small cars for some time now, right?
Right.
So price will not be the most important factor.
Correct.
People would maybe willing to spend 30, 40, 50,000 extra, sometimes even 1 lakh rupees extra to buy what they want, because they're buying it only once. They will not buy another motorcycle for a few years at least, and then they're like, I'll probably spend a few more thousand rupees and buy exactly what I want and not compromise on the price.
Yeah. On that note, when you bring up the topic of cars, I would say a similar trend starting to show in the motorcycle segment also. They were all the rage. The hatchbacks were all the rage some few years back, and then suddenly this whole SUV started, or crossovers, so to speak. They're not like true blue 4x4, but everybody wants a little bit of ground clearance to go over the rough roads or the broken roads. The scrambler segment is something which I am really bullish about. That's something maybe we'll see a lot of new models coming in. That's going to be the crossover or the SUV or the compact SUV of the motorcycles in the coming years to come. That's one sub-segment of motorcycles which we'll see a lot of models coming in. And I think the Indian motorcyclists will see the advantages of having a scrambler, practical scrambler.
So as I said, lots for you to choose from. That was our discussion about the rapidly growing 400cc segment in the Indian motorcycle market. What are your thoughts on these motorcycles? Do let us know in the comments below. If you're looking to buy one of these bikes, which one will you choose and why? We're eagerly waiting to know your comments.
Thank you so much for watching. If you ride a motorcycle, do not ignore that helmet. And if you wear a helmet, don't forget to strap it on and strap it on tight. And always be safe. Go back home safe to your family and be aware of other road users as well. Thank you for watching Car and Bike.
Bye. See you soon.